So in terms of your school, Claire, has your governing body got bigger or smaller as a result of academy status?
It got smaller initially, and that's because we are aware of the desire to have smaller, more professionally equipped governing bodies, and therefore, as a result of the skills audit, we did decide that actually 12 was a sort of an optimum number. I think it's also worth bearing in mind in terms of best practice that I'm aware of in other sectors, then again that was taken into consideration in terms of the size of that particular body. What is important though is that you do have representation from each school, and that is written into your articles because the chair of the local governing body, we are a multi-academy trust, the chair of the local governing body automatically becomes a director. So they become an academy director. And therefore you instantly have at least one individual that is able to feed through back and forth views that are exchanged at each level. And it's important that it is that two-way communication. It's not one way. And again, in terms of making that work, communication and relationships are key, as always. So when you're looking at your skills audit, although there is only a requirement to have the chair become a director, you can still have other people involved. So if within a local governing body there was a particular skill set that you felt was missing from the wider board of directors, you could invite them to participate. Now you could make them a director by appointing them as a member appointed director if your articles state that the power to appoint directors lie with the members. But you could also have them there to participate but not actually get involved in the decision making. The only thing that you have to be aware of there is something that's called a shadow director. And if you have people participating and perceiving themselves to fulfill the role of director and they're not officially a director, you have to be careful that you don't run into difficulties in a legal sense, which is known as being a shadow director.
One of the issues that's been around for some time is the government's notion that smaller governing bodies are by definition better than larger governing bodies. I'm not sure anybody other than the DfE believes that. But I also think it's sometimes a cover for actually saying parent governors in particular are the problem with governing bodies. So can you just talk to me a little bit about parent representation on your governing body? Has that improved? Has it increased? Has it decreased? How do you keep parents on board and keep them involved?
We were very fortunate. We have a good level of parental engagement within the governing body. We always did have. And the original subscribers to the memorandum were in fact all bar one parents. So there was strong representation from parents right from the outset. We have parent directors. There is a requirement within the articles for us as a multi-academy trust to have a minimum of 2 parent directors within a federation of up to 10 academies. So if you look at it like that, the articles are saying to you, for every 10 schools that you have within your federation, you only actually need to have 2 parent directors. That's not very much. And I think for a school that wishes to engage with its parent body, and we all recognise the importance of parental voice, as part of our stakeholder engagement sort of strategy, then that doesn't seem to permit or encourage governing bodies and academy trusts to invite more parental input. So I would say it's important to have at least the minimum. Obviously you've got to by law, but again it does very much come back to the skills, knowledge and experience, and it's no good just being a parent and not having something else that you can contribute. If you're talking about smaller bodies, then everybody that sits at the table has to have something that they contribute. Now, of course, their experiences as a parent are important and they will contribute that to any discussions and debates that are going on. But if you're, as I say, trying to retain a small body, then I think it would be helpful if there were other skill sets and attributes that they brought to the table as well.
What about as under the multi-academy trust model, it gets bigger, and you've got the local governing body, which you described earlier as essentially a teaching and learning committee.
Yes.
And then you've got the directors at the top making the strategic decisions about procurement of services and so on. Is there a risk that there's a real disconnect between that director level decision making and the real local needs of the particular schools, so that you almost become like some big Tesco effect, dare I say?
Yes, it is a risk, definitely, and one that within your sort of composition you need to take account of. So that need for local input, local participation to ensure that the Board of Directors is actually representing the interests and the needs of all its schools within its federation is critical. Now, we've already established that the chair is already involved. We've established that you can have greater participation and involvement at director level by other members of the local governing bodies, if that's seen fit, but also through the working groups that you set up, the committees. There are all manner and sort of mechanisms of involving a wider group of people to ensure that the scrutiny has taken place with everybody participating, all viewpoints being added into the mix, before then a recommendation is made to the Board of Directors to make a decision. So I think it's important that when you're looking at key aspects of strategy and policy, that the local level and perspective is invited to participate and help shape what they will look like across the whole Academy Trust. Because again, it's about ownership, it's about bringing about cohesion amongst your stakeholder groups. If people are feeling distanced or ostracised or excluded, that's always going to throw up issues. So it's much better to come to some consensus and approve that as a strategy or policy decision, with a little bit of flexibility for sort of local delivery to take account of local context, local student needs, etc. And that way you're going to make sure that you go forward and operate your governance and day-to-day operations in a joined up way.
Is there a risk though that you referred earlier to the fact that, you know, everybody needs to bring something else other than perhaps their experience of a parent? Is there then a risk that governance, whether it's of an academy or indeed another school, if we're moving into this professional type model, becomes an occupation only for the middle classes?
I would hope not, because I think, you know, if we're talking about a skills audit taking into account skills, knowledge and experience, whilst professional skill sets are very valuable and do contribute a lot in terms of the delivery of good governance, there is a lot to be said about that local knowledge, local experience and understanding, and therefore, you know, it's helpful if everybody around the table has particular required skills to contribute towards debates, to make sure that they're fully informed. You know, it's not something that you can dictate. I think it is vital that you have parents on board that can offer, you know, a real live experience of how that particular school operates, what it's like to be as an end user, as a customer, consumer, whichever way you want to put it. I don't want to sort of get caught up in sort of professional language, but it is about, from a parent's perspective, you know, where are some of the issues? You know, what experiences have they had or neighbours had that flag up as an early warning signal, perhaps some areas that require greater research or investigation to ensure that things are running in the way that you hope them to. So it's vital.